You know, delivering excellence is more than just 18 wheels moving products around the country. Trucking is complex, and its people are passionate. Accommodating a diverse driving workforce, ever changing regulations, supply chain demands, and new technologies all present their own challenges, but in trucking, the creative and the innovative succeed. Let's understand the people that drive and support the trucking industry. And welcome to Garner Trucking's Beyond the Cab. Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Cab. I'm your host, Tim Krolsky, and today I'm excited to have a brand new employee for Garner Trucking, new member of the management team, Todd Fowler, our sales director. Todd, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Tim. Glad to be part of it.
So, Todd, we hired you back in February of this year and gave you plenty of time with our retired salesman Ed McKinley, and I guess I'd like to just start right there and talk a little bit about that experience and that transition, having someone to kind of I don't know so much mentor, but at least kind of guide you through how we do things. How'd that process go for you?
Tim, it really went pretty well. I mean, I've obviously had other positions in my career. That's probably the first time I've ever taken a position with an incumbent still in the role. But because the role is so unique with Garner, I think it was really beneficial for me because obviously Ed's working remotely. He knows the process. He manages the process. He was really a great mentor to work with and kind of walk me through the ropes and just kind of understand from a day-to-day perspective what he does and how he engages customers and how he manages reports and really it's beyond just the administrative process. It's also kind of understanding how he manages his sales cycle and customer engagements as well. So, I mean, it was really beneficial. And like I said, I mean, I couldn't have asked for really a better guy to work with because Ed was great. And even to this day, he's been, available to answer any questions or any other, situations that have come up where I was looking for either a piece of information or maybe where I needed to go to find something. So he's been great. It was great.
Awesome. It illustrates that I think a lot of people, when they think about sales, oh, well, it's just talking to people and that sort of thing. It's, there's a lot of detail and a lot of time and a lot of behind the scenes that goes into being an excellent salesman. And I think you're absolutely of that caliber. So I hope that time was beneficial for you. You're coming to us today on the phone, much like Ed, who lived down in the Columbus area. You kind of follow that same path down in Westerville, Ohio. But I would like to kind of step back just a little bit and kind of find out a little bit about your history and where you went to school and kind of take us through kind of the start of young Todd.
Yeah, so my mom kind of grew up on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. My dad was in Ohio. For me, I grew up in the Columbus area, so I grew up in Worthington. And I went to high school at Worthington High School. I've spent almost my entire life in Columbus. I've moved a couple times professionally through my career, but I went to high school at Worthington High School, and then which is in Columbus, and then I went to college at the University of Rio Grande, which is a small school in Southeast Ohio, kind of more famous for Bob Evans than it really is about the school, but the experience was great, and it was a small school down in Southeast Ohio. So, I developed some friendships that, to this day that have, are still lifelong friends.
Awesome. So I know that there's quite a bit of history there in terms of job history and things. One of the things that I certainly am akin to and found interest in your life is I have my oldest son is a Marine, is that you spent some time in the military as well. What can you share with us about that?
I always felt, after high school or while I was in high school, I always felt I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew that was kind of my flight path for my, to kind of launch my career and for my personal developmental growth. But I also felt like I really wanted to serve the country. Um, and so I made the decision to, for me, my personal opinion was if I was going to join the Marines, if I was going to join the service, I was going to join the Marines. And so, um, I joined as a reservist. So I basically, I went to Parris Island. I did the whole boot camp process. And then literally, a lot of people when they graduate Parris Island get to go home, before their next deployment. For me, I just got on a bus right from Parris Island, went right to Camp Lejeune, did my School of Infantry training. And then I was able, once I got done with that, then I was able to basically start the winter semester at college. But, I think for me, I mean, the military experience was just, it's been a part of who I am, throughout my life. Our unit was deployed a couple times. I have lifelong friends that I still talk with to this day that I serve with. I just think it's a whole different brotherhood. I mean, I was in a fraternity in college, but when you join the Marines, it's a whole different level of brotherhood because it's a whole different level of commitment. I mean, we got deployed for Desert Storm, and as a unit, and while we didn't actually we all wanted to go, but it basically was over before we could even get off the ship. And we spent probably 6 months in a contingency status as troops were rotating back. So, the deployment was not quite what we, were kind of hoping for. But, during that 6 months or 7 months that we were, together as a unit, I mean, you just get tighter and tighter. So that, that whole camaraderie, that whole brotherhood and that service aspect of it is something that I really appreciate and something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. I mean, I see it's kind of an unspoken thing. I mean, you see a Marine in an elevator, you see someone wearing a hat, it's always Semper Fi, how are you? You talk to them. So I appreciate your son serving. I mean, that's just that's outstanding.
Well, and I thank you for your service as well. I think it's great. I think the one, and maybe the only, in very simple terms, because I hadn't been through it myself, but from what everything I understand in that time at boot camp, that organization in particular, the Marines, they do an excellent job of basically stripping you down to nothing and building you back up to understand that whoever's beside you is the person that you need to protect. And I think that probably is the large reason that camaraderie exists, even when you do meet someone in an elevator or pass someone on the street. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just remember getting off the bus at Parris Island, and I was a high school graduate. Everyone's confident about everything. I was an athlete. I thought I knew a lot about the world. But your world changes instantly when you get off that bus, when that drill instructor steps on that bus and you get off the bus at Parris Island and step on those yellow footprints. You know that your life has changed. From that moment on, whatever you thought about yourself is gone. You're basically part of a team, and you better just get in line and learn how to deal.
Yeah.
Because it's a real it's an awakening that a lot of people maybe don't get to experience, but it's you realize basically really how small you are in the world at some point.
Well, I think it's important to understand for all of us that you can't lead until you learn how to follow, and I think that's one of the the true benefits of joining the military is you learn that lesson very quickly. What brought you
Yeah, that's
into
well said.
what brought you into the trucking industry?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I did kind of an internship at a CFS, which is basically a container freight station, a warehouse that was basically breaking down containers, breaking down air pallets that would come in netted. So then you sort everything. This particular CF location was, you know, it kind of exposed me to multiple sides of the supply chain. But really the trucking aspect and the freight business was something that I did two sides of it. So I actually worked in containers, stripping containers, doing the manual work one summer, and then the next summer I spent time kind of shadowing the supervisor. So it was a really good experience, and it was something that I kind of felt like it was something. It was a career that I really wanted to take a look at when I got out of college.
So, well, I'm glad you decided to get into transportation. So, tell me something that's true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
That's kind of a tough question. I guess one thing I'll say is you got a better chance of winning an Olympic medal than you do of winning the lottery. Lots of interesting facts out there, but I've got some friends. We kind of banter back and forth, but we like to bounce some trivial information off of each other.
That's a pretty good little piece, and frankly, if that is true, that's pretty amazing on its own.
You know what? Another thing I'll say about that is my daughter, who's only who's young. She came to me with an interesting fact. She wants an axolotl. An axolotl is like a little salamander type of. I didn't even know what it was. I mean, she knew what it was. It's a very kind of advanced word for someone that's her age. And she came to me with an interesting fact. She said, "Do you know that they can regrow their arms and legs if they lose one?" I was like, I did not know that.
But you do now. You're all the better for
I
it.
do. I do.
So one of the things that I always find interesting, just purely from a management perspective, and when you bring a new individual into the organization, obviously there's a learning curve for not only for the individual coming in, but certainly for the organization. And I know you and I have had some conversations about who we are and just trying to get to know each other and get better about understanding each other. What would you say that's something that people misunderstand about you personally?
I think a lot of people think that I'm a really laid back person, and that I'm agreeable. My wife sometimes, my wife would probably differ with that. I'm actually, I'm a pretty intense person, and I'm passionate about some of the things that I like to do, and I can be a little bit opinionated, but that's probably one thing but I've learned how to I've after spending basically my entire career of working with people, the one thing that I've regardless of how I am as an individual, one thing I think has always been a good positive attribute for me is I've always felt like I'm a good listener. I'm a good processor of information. So that's kind of that.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with that statement only because I know that again, in kind of the short time that we've had an opportunity to work together, that part of the processing piece. For some kind of it escapes them or eludes them, but for someone such as yourself, there's always that next question, and it's a poignant one. It's one that's important, and it helps you to understand that situation, whatever it is, a little bit better. And certainly, I've kind of witnessed that, in our short time, but. From your side of the house now, we've talked a little bit about what people may need to understand or know about you. What do you see as kind of the mechanisms that drive the organization that we both work for?
A couple things come to mind. I mean, one of the biggest things that come to mind with when I talk about our organization is the culture of the company. I mean, it's a really intimate group. More of a family, and I think there's I work for some much bigger companies that tend to maybe not treat their drivers necessarily as Shirley or John, and maybe they treat them as truck 533 or 788. So, one thing there's probably a couple things that come to mind when I think about our company. It's the commitment to the people and our commitment to service for the customers. I think those are two really big differentiators to some of our competition.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because even back 25 years ago when I first started, the thematically those were still the driving forces then. Is that customer service piece is the most important out of all the things that we provide for a customer, and that's kind of what keeps them coming back and appreciating what we do. But yeah, I always love to ask a question like that, because I always think I know, but it's good to kind of hear from someone else that's kind of coming into the organization and getting a new or different understanding of what we are and who we are. Since we're talking about kind of organizations, are there some organizations that you really admire? Two or three different companies that you really respect, and if so, why do you respect those organizations?
Well, I mean, I would say, obviously, I have a ton of respect for the Marine Corps as an organization and as a unit, and for what they do for obviously the country and what they do historically, to protect our values and freedom, but also their commitment to other things like Toys for Tots and other things like that. That the Tunnels to Tower Foundation, I think that's an incredible organization for what they do, not just for the military, Gold Star families and the families that have been impacted, but also for the service, the service members, the police, firefighters that have had significant trauma in their life. I think that's an outstanding organization. And then I'm kind of a TV simpleton. I don't have a huge buffet of shows that I like to watch. I do watch a lot of Fox News, and I think as an organization, when it comes to kind of what they do and the diversity and kind of the diversity of the programming and kind of their general thing, I like to watch it, and I think they've done really well in an extremely competitive media environment.
It's great answers to those questions. So, in terms of organizations, or maybe even in your personal life, is there a person that you can kind of point to that may have kind of left something behind for you or changed your life in some ways, or someone that as I ask a question like that immediately pops into your mind?
I got to say, I mean, the first thing that pops in my mind when I think about someone that changed my life, it's like my daughter. So having my daughter was probably, was obviously one of the most exciting days for me and my wife. But we were kind of older, and in comparison to my peer group, when we finally had, we're putting kids into middle school, and some of my friends are, their kids are getting out of college. So, but that really changed my life. I've got my kind of my uncle who also served. He's a Vietnam veteran. He also kind of he's when I got deployed, he was there for me. Just to share some input, and he and I, we golf, we lifelong friends. He sends me something every Marine Corps birthday, every Veterans Day. So he's been a big person in my life as well.
Okay. I often think about these type of situations. You had mentioned the birth of your daughter is kind of a life changing moment for you. Is there another situation or event that you can draw on that kind of gives some insight, maybe as to who you are as a person, or what your character is?
Well, I think I kind of touched on that a little bit before. When I joined the Marines, I think that whole boot camp experience, I really grew up as a person from from the time I went as a high school college, as a high school graduate, right out of high school, just, no cares at all, to basically the September that I graduated boot camp. I grew up so much in those, in that 12 to 16 week period. It changed my outlook on life and maturity and, commitment. So it definitely was a life-changing event for me.
So I know you kind of draw back to that as kind of the beginnings of your professional career. Would you say that there's something you kind of wish that you knew as you got started?
I mean, I remember being kind of a young professional, and everyone, everyone that you're around that's older than you always says, "You won't believe how fast it goes." And now that I'm, older and farther along in my career, I look back and I was like, man, they weren't kidding. This is just, where did all this time go?
Yeah.
And, so there's stuff that there's stuff I wish I would have done, or, other stuff that you kind of, maybe you move it to the farther below on your list. And, as you get older, you realize, hey, I got to start, it's time to start checking some boxes.
So is there something recently that was a box that you needed to check that you actually did check, or do you find that you have more of that stuff that's just kind of stuffed into a box somewhere and hopefully you'll get to it?
Well, I still have some stuff in a box that I hopefully will get to it, but there's, there was some, let's just say some home family administrative things that we needed to get done, that we were able to get done this past year. We needed to pave our driveway. We needed a new roof. But those are all just transactional things. But there's other stuff that that my wife and I both talked about. We need to start making more time for this or this, and get more stuff done.
So what's the one thing you absolutely want to do before you leave the earth behind?
Man, that's a tough question. I guess one thing I want to see my daughter get married and start her life, right? I want to be here when that happens.
That's a big thing.
That's probably the most important thing. I mean, it's, for us, my wife and I decided that, because we started late, that we were only going to have, one child, and she's pretty much our world. So, we both want to see that for sure.
Absolutely. Is there something that you could say that you're not very good at?
Well, I would say, if I had to be self-critical, I build a lot of lists, and I try to prioritize my task. I wish I was maybe a little bit better of a handyman. I've got a buddy that's a contractor. He's made his whole life, that he owns his own business. It's always been easy for me to call him and ask him to come over and help me do things. But as I've gotten older, I do feel like, man, I need to learn how to do some of this stuff myself. And I've done some of that, but there's always room, to learn how to do more stuff.
Sure. I agree with that too. Is there some things you work towards, in your free time, the hobbies that you enjoy, or things that you enjoy doing?
Well, I really, I enjoy being outside. I love, I like to do yard work. I love to golf. I love to spend, we love to spend, time with as a family. I live basically right near my father-in-law, and my wife's sister is in town, so we like to do a lot of stuff together as a family. And then we, like I talked about a little bit before, I mean, we have a list of home projects that we're still trying to check off, and my wife may say that, maybe I spend too much time watching Fox News instead of, um, you know, maybe where I should be working on refinishing the floor or other things on the checklist.
There's always a list, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
So from we really haven't touched much on sales, and obviously that's the main function here within the organization. And it's been great getting to know quite a bit about you here today. What would you say is, from a customer standpoint, what's one thing that a customer did that you just simply didn't expect?
Well, I mean, here recently, I was, and I'm just beginning. I mean, I've obviously been in the business. I've had some long-term relationships with some customers and some other, other customers within the industry. But I was really surprised to get, an email from a customer basically almost thanking us for exceptional service and customer service. And I mean, in today's world, everything is, I mean, everything is everyone's busy. Everyone has a ton on their plate. You know, the world's on fire, basically. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in this world, but for someone to take, you know, 5 extra minutes and be thoughtful enough to send, an unsolicited, uh, positive comment like that really made me appreciate the organization that I work for.
That's really kind of cool, and nice to hear that maybe that's not as common as what we think it would be, and we do get quite of appreciation from our customers, and we certainly appreciate that feedback, whether it's good or bad. It's always good to know where you stand with the companies you do business with. Todd, I've got one final question for you, and I think it's one that I would probably struggle with a little bit in terms of what I would want to put on a billboard. But if you could put anything on a billboard, what would it be, and why?
I would, what I would put on that billboard would be, and I'm not taking Nike slogans. I don't, I forget exactly what their terminology used to be. Maybe it was just do it.
Yep, just do
Um,
it.
but my what I would put on my billboard would be do it now, don't wait. I'll give you just kind of a quick story of why that means something to me. Is I played golf this past weekend with a buddy. We always try to make it a point. We went to high school together. Um, we didn't go to college together, but we've stayed in touch, and we've always talked about things that we want in our life as we get older. I mean, he had some fast cars when we were young, and so he recently bought a Corvette, right? And he's not going through a midlife crisis. It's just one thing he wanted to get. But we had a mutual friend that was really close with us who made a ton of money, was just really a great guy, but he got cancer and he died at a much younger age, and my buddy is still really tight with his family. And so he said, you know what, I was in that showroom looking at that Corvette, and because you saw what Kirk went through. He had all the money in the world, but he couldn't take it with him. And he's like, this is something I wanted. I've worked for it, I can afford it, I'm getting it. And I was like, man, good for you. That's, do what you want, right? And you saw what happened to our buddy. Like you said, you saw what happened to our buddy, and so that kind of meant something to me. So you never know what tomorrow brings. So
Yeah, so just get it done, huh? Just do it.
yeah, just get it,
Well,
just do it, right?
no one said that Nike couldn't be a bit philosophical about things. I think that's a really great slogan. Well, Todd, I got to say, I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and have this conversation and allow us to get to know you a little bit. And certainly we look forward to the things that you're going to bring to the table for the organization. That train's already left the station. You've been hard at work since you came on board, even through the training, and now on your own. I think we really are excited to have you here and thankful for the time today to get to know you a little bit as well.
Well, thanks, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm used to listening to podcasts. I've never been on one, so this is a first for me. So I can check that off my list.
There you go. That's off the bucket list, right?
That's right.
Well, and to everyone else, I want to thank you for enjoying another edition of Beyond the Cab.